Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special show that we have in store for you. This show is our Jaguar sit down talk show where we are highlighting this magnificent animal. Through the month of November, we spent a lot of time highlighting this very important species, and we had in store a whole month of activities that we have our team here who will share to you all the amazing stuff that we covered during this month of November. My name is Nathaniel Castillo. I'm the Marketing and Communication Manager here at Yasha Conservation Trust. We also have Miss Evarista Shaw, our Education and Outreach Officer, and we have a very special guest, Mr. Florentino Chiak, our Science Manager. So to start off today's show, I'll have no other than Miss Evarista Shaw speak to us about some of the outreach that we did to some of the different schools across the MGL where we went in to highlight the key importance of this species. And I would like to give a huge shout out to not only the Forest Department for also being a part of this, but as well to PAC. It is through the PAC project we were able to support this outreach activities in tandem with some of the work that we do within the protected areas. So I'll have Ms. Everesta take it away from here to talk to us about what we did with the lovely students from the MGL.
Okay, thank you very much, Nathaniel. Yes, we did visit it. We had the pleasure of visiting the primary schools and the high schools and also an environmental club. So we were involved in the presentations to Aguacate RC School, San Miguel RC School, Bella Vista Government Secondary School, and Juliancho Technical High School, and the environmental club at San Jose Arts Club. So those are the schools that we did this presentation about in terms of this Jaguar Awareness Month. So the theme for this activity that we did was from conflict to coexistence, empowering communities to bridge the gap between people and Jaguar. So that was a theme that we started off with in terms of continuing with these presentations and so forth we did with the students.
So yeah, I mean, it was definitely a lot of outreach that we did with not only the primary schools but as well with some of the different high schools. And one thing that we saw through the different presentations is that, there was sort of like a shift change, which will speak a bit more throughout this presentation, where a lot of individuals had some knowledge of these species, but it was just surface level. And it's true, the different interactions that we had with them that provided an opportunity where, we could share some very interesting facts about the species and just to open the minds of some of these individuals so they could, not only be educated, but also to become ambassadors for the species, because the species not only has cultural implications, but it's seen as a symbol, a national symbol for Belize, and even being represented on the international stage in Miss Universe, where this species was highlighted as one of the main dresses for such a huge international stage. But definitely, we are doing our part to spread the educational awareness and the importance of this species. And that's not only being done by us. The Forest Department is also doing their part and their own set of outreach through this entire month of November. And it was an amazing opportunity that we had where we were able to team up with them through some of the outreach that we did. It was just, an amazing cross collaboration with the Forest Department to share what not only the private sector is doing, but also what the government is doing on their end. But yeah, could you share with us, some of the different activities that was done with the students? What were some of the hands-on activities that they did?
So in terms of that, yes, besides just having presentations, we also involve these students in actually, painting like, for example, the jaguar and the different ecosystems that they live in. Because like what one of the presentations that was there is like talking about the existence, so where these jaguars actually lives in, and so that was one of the activity there. And then the other one was in terms of the emotional wheel that we did in terms of knowing about getting to see their emotions as to what they think when they heard the word jaguar, what comes to mind and so forth. So that was one of the things that we actually did in terms of that. So we had that emotional way at the beginning, and then like a pre-survey thing, and then at the ending. So we want to see how they reacted afterwards, after hearing about all the facts about this jaguar. How do they feel afterwards about it? So, and then the other thing that we did was in terms of making them, making posters and so forth. So in terms of different activities, what they can do is like, we have them answer questions as to the presentations that we did with them. So those are the things that we actually did with them.
Well, thank you for that, Eva. And it sounds like it was a very interactive session with all the different youths across the MGL, the different students. And, it was just a very amazing time. And we have to give a huge thank you to the principals, the students, the teachers who were involved in this Jaguar Awareness campaign, for just allowing us to go into the classrooms to speak to the youths, to speak to the students, and to raise awareness of Jaguars, not only across the MGL, but across the entire country of Belize. It really is an amazing species to learn about, and we need to do our part. It's more than just talking about, yes, we need to protect the jaguars and so forth, but we have to go a bit farther to understand why is it that we need to protect these species. And I have no better person than Mr. Florentino Chiak to speak to us about the importance that this species play, not only in the ecosystems, but to us culturally, and to us as Belizeans. The jaguar is recognized as a key symbol as Belizeans, and we all need to do our part to protect this amazing species.
Okay, thank you for that, Nathaniel. So yes, so today we're talking about jaguar. So here with me today we have a 3D model of a jaguar that we have engaged a environmental club to sort of do like a painting of this animal. So jaguar. So jaguar, when you hear about jaguar, even the name itself is very powerful because jaguar are the king of the jungle. They're the largest cat in the Americas, and they also have the strongest bite. And they have these little spots, as you can see. We call them rosettes. So these rosettes are very important to identify individual jaguars. So jaguars, you know, play a crucial role within the Belizean culture. So we could start with learning about their ecological importance. In the forest, jaguar are top predators, and they help regulate prey species population. And by doing so, it helps maintain that balance within our food chain and by extension, the food web. So they do have a crucial role. And for us, as Yasche, we help protect these animals, and we consider them as bioindicator because of their role. We know when an ecosystem is in a good condition or on a stable condition because these animals serve as bioindicators. Then when you look at the cultural perspective and their implication, here in Belize, Belize is a melting pot of culture. For example, within the Maya culture, jaguar is a sacred animal and it's been portrayed within the deer dance. And jaguar and other wildlife, they play a crucial role showing that link between nature and people and how, like especially like the Maya people, they have a close connection with nature, and that's where the deer dance have that, like little mimicking of how they have this close relationship. Beside that, even in general within the Belizean culture, there's that national pride. Even wherever you go, everybody know jaguar because they help promote, especially the when it comes to like pageant and those conservation events. Jaguar is always being portrayed because of their iconic, you know,
Presence.
they're present, and also the way how they're very symbolic. So that's why people just love jaguars. And looking at the economic aspect of it, Jaguar helps bring, generate income in Belize. For example, we have a lot of tourists that comes to Belize to visit protected areas to go for ecotourism. Sometimes tourists just come to Belize just to see these animals out there in the wild. And also we have the Belize Zoo, which we have jaguar there, injured jaguar that can no longer be deployed in the wild. So they help their species by serving as an ambassador to educate the Belizean and by extension those visitors, and it helps generate income for the Belizean economy. So jaguar, both ecological, culturally, and socio-economically, have a crucial role here in Belize.
Yes, and we as Yasha, we do our part to mitigate a lot of the the unnecessary killing of jaguars as best as we could. Because one thing is, we understand that there has to be a balance between livelihoods. There has to have a balance between, you having your space and these magnificent species having their space as well. And oftentimes you could see us as humans, we are the ones who are cutting down the forests. We are the ones doing all the bad deeds, and that affects these species not only in terms of a place to live but also food, where we eat the same thing as them. One of the jaguar key diet is not only the gibna but also armadillos. And if you're from the south, and you have your cultural connections to these local bushmeat, what we call bushmeat, you may have grown up in a household where culturally you also eat these animals as well. Unfortunately, and conveniently, a lot of other Belizeans have not tasted these animals. But down here in the south, we have a cultural connection to it where we share from the same food web as these species, and sometimes our presence as human can add unnecessary pressures on that food chain, where sometimes people are hunting more and more and more, and that is putting a strain on these animals to find food. And often this is where you'd find a problem jaguar, what we call a problem jaguar, where they would sort of get lazy from hunting in the wild. They would meet up probably to a cattle farmer and so forth, and then you're going to have some form of this human jaguar conflict, and even it could go as far as even having issues with where a jaguar may eat your dog. Unfortunately, these events do happen, but we have to do our part in order to preserve these species. It shouldn't be a situation where we just say, "Bam, I'm going to take out a gun and shoot this animal," because even if you just shoot that one animal right there, you're putting a significant impact on the ecological balance that that one jaguar plays, because they have such a vast range that they go about patrolling and looking for food. So I'm sure Mr. Tino could give us a bit more information on the roles that these species play, looking at how they go about looking for food, and some of the human jaguar conflict work that we do here at Yasha Conservation Trust.
Okay, so so like I mentioned before, jaguars, is not doesn't only live in Belize but across Americas, both Central and South America. So jaguar across their home range continue to be threatened by deforestation, through habitat loss and habitat fragmentation. Then which is also closely linked when it comes to the human wildlife conflict that persists throughout this human influenced landscape. Then we also have those anthropogenic activities such as those escape agricultural fire. Then we also have natural disaster that continue to sort of shrink these habitats for these animals. And as development continues, there is more need for space and resource between people and wildlife, and that's where clashes arises. And one of them is the human jaguar conflict. So that's usually occur whenever a jaguar or other predators come in close contact with human, and it result for their domestic animal, for example, calves, sheep, goats, or other animal like for example dogs that usually get attacked and killed by these predators. And whenever these issues occurs, farmers or residents tend to get frustrated and they would come with the last resort of using lethal control, by eliminating this animal. But that's not the way to go. Sometimes whenever these farmers or residents use lethal control, they don't necessarily kill that jaguar, and sometimes it just become an injured jaguar. They can't hunt their prey in the natural forest. So what they will do is rely on these opportunistic food source, for example, these domestic animal which they can't fend from themselves, and therefore that escalate to these conflict happening. So that's why we at Yashe we try to work directly with farmers to promote non-lethal mitigation measures. So these non-lethal mitigation measures include with the use of foxlights. So with farmers, we through project we support them by providing these different light, for example, like foxlights. So those one of the solar power light. It's a solar predator deterrence that we usually give the farmers to help them, deter these predators away from their farm. So in a way, they help secure their livestock while this animal jaguar continues to inhabit those forest patches between these farms. Another key important mitigation measure that we use is the cowbells. So cowbells usually make noise, and it also help farmers to know which side of their large pasture these animals are grazing. Then we also advise farmers to corral their animal, especially those young animal, because here in southern Belize we also respond to conflict. So when ever since we have data from 2021, we realized that most of the site investigation, we noticed that it was mostly calf that are being attacked by jaguar. Jaguar doesn't go for the big bulls; they go for the vulnerable young. And also the same thing with dog. That's why we try to encourage these farmers to corral their young one until they're old enough to fend from themselves. And also we try to tell them to improve their husbandry practices. Most of the time, these farmers are small-scale farmer, and not all of them have the capital to build those very predator-proof fencing. And that's where these farms doesn't really have that predator-proof fencing, and that's where their animal would tend to wander off the nearby forest, and that's the natural home of jaguar. Then in an event that happens, and that's where this conflict occurs. So that's why we try to tell farmers what are some of the best practices they can do on their end and to avoid these conflicts. And also one way how we try to, beside working with farmers, we try to educate the younger generation. And that's where, environmental outreach comes into play. For us, we want the next generation to continue see these animals in the wild and not just in cages, but for them to strive in their natural habitat. So that's why we try to educate them what are some of the importance of jaguars, what are some of their threats to jaguars, and what is Yashe and by extension other conservation partners are doing here across Belize to ensure that these animals continue to live in the wild. And that's why we're here now trying to educate the public as well to learn what can they do, what are their role to play. There's so much we can do as an organization. You have a role to play. For example, when it comes to conflict, here in Belize, the relevant entity to respond to this conflict is the Belize Forest Department. Belize is large, and they have their branches across the district. But then it's very important for you to make a call to the forest department for them whenever there's conflict. Report it to them so they could do their part and try to see how we could sort of reduce or mitigate it, or maybe by example we could. The last resort is relocation. So that's why you have a role to play by reporting these predator attacks whenever it occurs. And also here in Belize, you could also reach out to us at Yashe because we also help the Forest Department to respond to this conflict whenever it occurs here in southern Belize.
Yes, thank you for that, Mr. Florentino. And definitely, ladies and gentlemen, this month has been a real jam-packed month with activities, all spreading the love for this amazing species called the jaguar, specifically through the campaign From Conflict to Coexistence, empowering communities to bridge the gap between people and jaguars. This is sort of a national campaign that we joined up not only with the Forest Department, but with the Belize Zoo, CSFI, and all the different entities who have their own specific role in protecting these jaguars. It's not only to protect them within the Maya Golden landscape, but it's to protect them us as a country. We need to do our part to protect these species because we want to see them in the future so that our children and the future generation can have the opportunity to witness just the greatness of these amazing animals. And definitely, we did our part to, reach out to the different schools to spread awareness, to reach out to the high schools as well. And, we just want to spread a huge thank you to those students who really welcomed us to their classrooms and to really just digest the information that was given to them. Like Mr. Florentina said, we work a lot with the Forest Department in terms of doing our part to respond to these Jaguars attacks. And they even go as far as having a Jaguar capturing unit under the Forest Department. And this is the stuff that we are doing our best to share that information out there, to make it available, to make it accessible, so you know what to do in the event a jaguar is near your farm, or if you are encountering problems on your farm, and not to jump straight to dramatic lethal measures. There are non-lethal measures, like Mr. Florentino mentioned earlier, through the cowbells, the foxlights, and we just have to do our part to preserve and protect these species here. But yeah, before we sign off, just any final words before we sign off?
Yeah, so I just want to, let the public know that, it's very important to live in coexisting with jaguars, because at the end of the day, we both want to live. We are both, we are like basically a natural element that, we share the same landscape. Let's continue to coexist. Let's continue to, play a role by reporting whenever these predator attacks occur. It's not everywhere this occur, but sometimes there's few instances where this occur, especially where there is that poor husbandry practices, especially when it comes to livestock. That's why you have our role to play. Educate the public as well. Share this information whenever any predator occur in your community. You can even report to your village leader, and they could reach out to the first department or Yashche to conduct these responses whenever these predators attacks occur.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time out to join us here at this Jaguar Sit Down Talk Show. We really appreciate, you taking your time out, not only to learn more about these amazing species, but, do your part as well. Share the live as well. Share whatever you may know with a friend, with a colleague. And if you yourself want to know more information about the work that we do, always feel free to go over to our website, or you could follow us here on our social media platforms. We do our best to post what is happening here in the MGL and the work that we are doing. And looking specifically at the Jaguars, every November is a month where we dedicate that month to supporting and to spreading awareness about these magnificent creatures. This year, campaign was definitely a really good and fun one, and we, the staff here at the Yasha Conservation Trust, really enjoyed interacting with the students and those who were involved throughout this campaign. And if you want to know more information, feel free to reach out to us. We're always open for questions, and we could direct that to our key personnel in the staff. But definitely, follow us on our social media platforms. The website is always there if you want to find more information. And we just want to give a huge thank you for tuning in and for joining us on the wrap up of this amazing Jaguar Awareness Month. We had amazing pleasure to present all of this information to you, and definitely do your part by sharing this live, and we'll see you on the next one. Okay.